Welcome back, guys. Today I'm going to be ranking every board of Mario Party 2. Similar to the last time, I'll be ranking these boards based upon the visuals of the board, the gimmicks, and how well it works within the context of the game that it is in. Also, similar to last time, I'm playing a 20-turn game on each board. This is the standard amount of moves required by Mario Party 1 and 2, and it's typically the standard amount in most of the games. While in later entries, you can go to fewer turns than this, such as 10 and 15, the standard board play is built around a 20-turn game, so that's what I'll be sticking with. Before we begin, I will say Mario Party 2's board selection was much better than the first games. You have far more ways to map out your routes with many different branching paths, and if that wasn't enough, the ability to have items is greatly appreciated. I will say, however, you can only hold one item at a time, and if you come across another item space or whatever, you can't use or replace the item that you already have until you get rid of it. You have no option to switch it out, so that can be very annoying and unhelpful. Most of the boards don't struggle from this issue, but some do, and we'll talk about that later. I also wanted to say I'm not going to be mentioning any of the dual minigames or item minigames specific to the boards, because for one thing, those are minigames and I don't feel they should be included in the map rankings, but also because the item ones in particular are super easy, aside from the Spaceland one, and are not very fun anyways. They slow down the pace of the game and force every other player to watch one person mess around for 2 minutes. There are some that are better than others, but I'd much rather rank the boards on their own merits and not include minigames that are somewhat attached to them. The duels also take like maybe 20 seconds each. The minigames that accompany it don't really change my stance of whether or not I want to play that map or not, so I will not count it for this ranking. Without further ado, let's get into the ranking. In last place we easily have Mysteryland. Now this is by no means an awful map, it's definitely the worst in the game however. You have this mechanic in this board where landing on happening spaces will send you to the next of 4 islands. It always goes in a circle, so it's nice to be able to map that out, and the other 2 modes of transportation are these UFOs on either end of the board, which have a chance of landing you on this tiny island, and the crossroads in the middle, which is accessible by skeleton keys. The idea of it is cool, having to find ways to get to different islands is a good idea, but it's still a little too random than I would like. On each island you have some way to get out of there, other than just a random space, so it is kinda nice, but it's way too convoluted and complicated, and it's not a good alternative to just taking one path normally. This map would have been fine if you just made actual paths between them. It is nice that there's only one spot in the entire board where you will infinitely loop if you don't land on the correct space. The only other way to do that is if you don't have enough coins. You have to pay 10 coins to use the UFOs, so you can loop in those sections if you don't have enough coins to escape that area and don't land on a happening space, but that's a rare occasion in my opinion, especially because Mario Party 2 does not take coins from you when you lose a minigame. But other than that, I think this gimmick works fine, but I still would have liked it to be normal. I will say I think that this level has one of the best uses of the skeleton keys in the game. Skeleton keys are items that are given to you in the game, and they allow you to access parts of the boards that you would not otherwise be able to reach. Most of the time they hold one of the 2 boos, which are very helpful for stealing coins or stars, or a chance time space. However, on this map, you use them to traverse to other parts of the map. I think that's one of the best uses for them. For the most part, on their levels, you could play the whole board without needing to buy one. However, in this board, it's essential that you have one with you. It's also nice that there's only 5 coins, so it's not a massive detriment for you to have to buy it. The jungle aesthetic is also very fun. Overall, the game does look a lot better than Mario Party 1, and I love the land theming that is constant throughout every board, as well as the costumes that all the characters get. The visuals on the characters and the boards themselves are more of a blanket statement overall for these maps, and I'm not going to factor in too much. It's really just what you prefer when it comes to the visuals. I will say, because you have to buy skeleton keys, it makes most of the other items of the game useless for this board. Because you can only buy one at a time, you're not able to preserve a skeleton key for later, or use a different item in your inventory. You have to choose one or the other, and any item that is in the game that doesn't allow you to warp to another position is basically useless at this level. You could get some use out of normal movement items like the double dice mushroom if you're trying to beat another player to the star on the circle that you're on, but the chances of that are happening are very rare. I also don't like this random Shy Guy hut on 2 of the 4 islands. All you do is pay 5 coins to make another player roll either a 1, a 2, or a 3 on their next turn. It can be strong, and it's understandable that it exists because the poison mushroom, which is the item that normally enacts this event, doesn't exist yet. But, if anything, it really just helps your opponents. This is a board where most of the time you probably want to roll low so you have a chance of transporting to other islands. So to be able to control your roll into 1 or 2 or 3 dice would be extremely helpful. So I don't know why anyone would use this on other fighters unless they are 4 or more spaces away from the star on the same island you are, try to keep it from them. You can also use it on yourself, but this is really only helpful in a very small scenario. When you pass the Shy Guy hut, you are most likely going to pass the happening space that is close to that hut, meaning if you want to use the 1, 2, 3 on yourself in order to land on the happening space, you'd be too far away. So it defeats itself. It's so dumb. If this was an item that you could use on yourself anywhere on the map, that'd be helpful, but either way, it's so dumb. If you use it on yourself, it's useless. If you use it on another fighter, it's even more useless. One thing I want to mention here for this level and for the rest of the game is that the happening spaces in this game have become much more impactful. As I mentioned in the last game, there's a happening space bonus for every board. This allows you to gain an extra star for whoever lands on the most happening spaces. I think that is much better in this game for 2 reasons. 1, there's a lot more ways to manipulate your dice roll with items and the direction that you can go to plan out landing on happening spaces more often. And for each board, they do much more impactful things. So on this board, it's very important that you land on happening spaces, but there can be times where you may not want to leave the island, but you realize that you're tied with other players and happening space bonuses, so by landing on one, it could give you a star in the long run. I really like that sort of long distance planning that you can strategize around this game. I think it's more impactful on other boards, but it's still cool here. Overall, the board isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's far too randomized to be very good. And items like the warp block or magic lamp become even more overpowered than they already are in this game, and takes a lot of strategy out of an otherwise really good set of boards. Next up is Spaceland, and to be clear, there is a massive step up in my opinion from Mysteryland to this one. I really love the aesthetics of this map as well. All of the fun elements, including the Bowser satellite and things like that, are really fun to look at while you play the game. This board has 2 major gimmicks. The first, and most visually interesting one, is the Bowser satellite laser. There's a counter in the middle of the board that starts at 5, and whenever a character lands on it and goes outside of the circle, that clock will go down by 1. After 5 people pass through it, anyone within a direct diagonal sight of the laser will be hit by it and lose all of their coins. I really like this because it makes you plan out when and when not to pass through the zone. And I don't think it's too punishing because of how rare it is. Sometimes characters will land on it 3 times in a turn, or you may not see it in an entire game. It's random enough, but can be planned around if the players choose to do so, and it doesn't become overused. However, the next gimmick is probably one of the worst in the game, and that is a Snippet Patrol. By landing on happening spaces at the bottom and top of the board, you'll have swamps and snippets, which are just Shy Guys with metal masks on instead of the white masks that you usually see, chase you back to the start of the corner of the map. Additionally, you can pay the Snippet Patrol, which are these big heads on the corners of the map, to send you back to the additional bottom or top corner of the map after the section you already went backwards on. This can be cool at times if the star is in a general direction, but more often than not, it's just annoying. For the first step of the process, the one without paying coins, it can feel like an infinite loop of always going on the same 8 or 9 spaces before you can finally get out of there sometimes. And on the second step of the process, only one of the 2 will actually lead you to a new area. The one on the right will send you this direction here, which will allow you to go towards the center of the map and then split off from there, so it can actually be helpful to pay for it if you know that you're going to land on happening spaces, and that's the direction you choose to go in. But on the left side, there is no branching path and you feel like you're always going the same direction. This gimmick absolutely destroys the pacing of this game. It can feel like you don't even see the rest of the map until like halfway through the board. And it's so funny too because there's a total of 5 happening spaces on the entire board, and yet for whatever reason, the dice algorithm feels like it's been finely tuned to land on one of the 2 at the start of the map for at least the first 2 or 3 turns on multiple players' turns. I don't know why this is. It could have just been a weird game for me, but I know other players that I've seen online have experienced these things as well. It's not only on this game, it's also in Superstars and still has this problem. I would have liked it if paying the snippet patrol to send you or your opponents backwards was the only aspect of this mechanic, because that works fine and can be helpful for you or detrimental to your opponents. But the randomness that occurs from the happening spaces on the start of the board and how much it can kill the pacing is so annoying. I feel like there's enough going on with a general good route on this board to keep you entertained without this dumb mechanic. If you can avoid landing on those spaces, I think the rest of the map really works well, and it's a fairly standard Mario Party board without it. And I like where the skeleton key gates are as well. One on the right side can allow you to call off a good amount of the loop if you're trying to get back towards the start, while the other at the top of the board can allow you to get out of the top row of spaces to possibly avoid landing on happening spaces and be sent backwards. It also holds one of the only 2 boost spaces on this map. One thing I don't really like is the placement of the only item shop on the board. It's a pretty good distance into the board, and if you're just going on the outside of the rim, and several of the items such as the movement ones can feel useless because of the snippet patrol sending you backwards on the next turn or whatever it may be. Overall, I think this is a fine enough board, and if you get lucky enough to avoid the happening spaces in the first section, I think you could definitely enjoy yourself. But the main gimmicks that exist on this map are not very enjoyable and overall hindrance to the experience of an otherwise good layout and theme. I think there are just better options in this game for sure. Next up is the only unlockable board in this game, that being Bowser Land. As I said last time, I'm going to tell you how to unlock this so you can do it for yourself, and this one is one of the simpler ones. All you have to do is play every board in the game at least once. After doing so, you'll have a cutscene where Bowser steals Toad, and you're thrown into a 20-turn match on this board that Baby Bowser runs instead of Toad. It doesn't really change anything about how the board plays outside of a normal setting, but it's just funny to mention. Assuming you can save your progress on whatever console you're playing this on, this really isn't very hard to unlock, and I'm thankful for that. I would say that Bowser Land is definitely the most complex board in the game because of how many different things are changed from normal gameplay. Horrorland is more involved on a play-by-play game, but this one changes up fundamentals more. For starters, every bank in this level, of which there are 3 compared to a normal 1 or 2, will give you 5 coins instead of taking 5. Taking 5 coins is a normal amount on every other map, and if I haven't mentioned it up to now, it's because it doesn't really affect how each board plays for the most part. And while it's annoying to have 5 coins taken for you for seemingly no reason, it actually helps the economy a lot. Anyways, I think this is a fun change and can really help the economy in this level because it will need it, as you will see soon. However, landing on this space will take however many coins have been stored up in it at this time. As you can see in my example, I had I think 65 coins saved up in the bank for the entire match, and I lost all of it because I landed on it once. This is a reverse of what it usually is, where landing on it will give you all the coins that have been taken from other players. I think this is a good shakeup. It really helps the economy and the rest of the game, but it can be annoying at times. Another change is a fake item shop near the top of the board. Here, Baby Bowser will sell you items at a marked up price. It's more funny than it is helpful. I think it would be bypassed if you already have an item, but it's annoying to lose those coins, especially when a star spawn spot is on the far right side. I haven't mentioned the spawning points for the stars most of the time because I don't usually pay enough attention to know the locations of every one of them, and it's kind of hard to give this punishment on the spot for one board and not the rest, but I just wanted to mention how it's very janky at this spot. I don't like that they put it 3 spaces after the mandatory space that takes 12 to 15 coins, no matter what. Anyways, the happening spaces on this board I don't find to be too terrible. The first are these pipes scattered about the board. Here, landing on it will teleport you to another part of the map. This can be helpful because it's a fairly large map, although not too terribly big, and can often help you get to the other side of the map, but it's hard to plan around. The other set of happening spaces will shoot you into the circle of 9 spaces, and you'll infinitely loop within it unless you land on happening spaces. This sounds bad at first, but over half of the spaces in this small circle of 9 are happening spaces, as I said before. And as I said before, landing on happening spaces are very important in this game because it can allow you to get the happenings bonus at the end of the game. It can be very annoying if a character is stuck in here for multiple turns, but I think that what it can benefit under the right circumstances better than the off chance that someone will land in it and be stuck here for ages. Plus, this is the Bowser board. It's supposed to be punishing and kind of funny. The other thing it does help is the other main mechanic on this board, that being the Bowser Parade. The Bowser Parade happens every 5 turns, and every character caught within the line of sight of the Bowser Parade will have all their coins taken and will be transported back to start. This is a very punishing event, but for one, it's easy enough to avoid it, so you stay out of the bottom half of the board most of the time, or in the circle, which is another reason it can be helpful if you land there. On top of this, you can also divert the direction that it's going to help you. There's 3 points on the board where you can change the direction of the incoming Bowser party for 5 coins. It's a fun bit of strategy and can get tense on your last 1 or 2 turns before Bowser party happens because coins are very valuable on this board. Like I said before, between the Bowser Parade, the item shop that makes you pay for more items, and the bank that can steal a lot of coins, the economy is kind of messed up in this level. So, I like how it's balanced out by the banks that will give you coins rather than take them away. It also makes coins much more valuable, so it may be worth it to pay a couple coins to divert the Bowser Parade if you don't want to get hit by it and lose everything. With everything that there is happening, there's like 5 or 6 different massive things that can happen at any time in your average roll. I think it's just a little too complex for Mario Party 2. Maybe somewhere later in the series, when you have more items and the economy is a little better, it would be nice, but as it is, it's just a lot going on. The central mechanic that's supposed to be a standout on this board, that being Bowser Parade, also isn't that interesting. Overall, it's still a good board and you can have a good time playing on it. I just think it's trying to do too much, and again, it's more punishing than it really needs to be. And now for the verse of the day. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Next up is Pirate Land, and this is the opening board in the game. I really like this one. It's a nice and simple board that allows you to learn how to play the game very well. The board is split up into 3 different islands and it's connected by these bridges. These bridges are the central mechanic of the board, because any happening space on it will shoot every player on all of the bridges back to start. It becomes very dangerous to cross them and exit. It makes items that involve movement, like double dice mushrooms, very valuable, so you can try to get across it quicker. Skull Island, which is the second of the 3, also has the swamp tolls that allow you to double back towards the first one quickly if you wish to do so. That's very similarly to the ones in Yoshi's Tropical Island, where they will increase after one person pays for all of them, but you are also not locked to that island if you do not pay for it. You can either go a shorter route if you have a skeleton key, or you can loop around the 3rd island to get back towards the start. It all flows very well. It also has very good uses of the skeleton keys. As I said a second ago, you can take one of them to go towards the first half of the board quicker, or you can use it on the first island to loop around and get to the only boo on the map. You can still get to the boo and the first half of the island without using a skeleton key in either spot, but you have to make a much longer route to get there, so it's definitely more helpful to use the key. I like the level of simplicity in this map, because it is the first board and allows you to just play a standard game of Mario Party. No crazy gimmicks that are too frustrating. It's very nice. I wish we had more of these types of boards in Mario Party. I think the big crazy gimmicks like Koopa's Tycoon Town and things like that can be very fun, but I do enjoy the simpler ones because oftentimes you're playing with your friends and you don't always want to think too much. I also really like the happening spaces because it teaches you risk versus reward when landing on them. As I've said before, they can contribute to your final star and have to decide whether you want to try and land on them to get to the start at the end, or be launched back to the start and possibly miss the star that's on the second or third island. It's a good risk reward mechanic that makes a lot of sense to new players. It's also really likely where the item space is placed. I also really like where the item shop is placed. It's early enough in the map that it doesn't feel out of the way, and if you land on one or two spaces ahead of it, you can choose to buy a skeleton key to wrap around or a double dice to speed up across the bridges. It's a very good spot where you can plan out your next roll very carefully and wager whether you want a chance that you're going to roll high or not. I also like that there's only one boost space on the map. It gives the skeleton key more worth because you can get to it quicker, and other maps such as Spaceland have them hidden behind skeleton key doors felt useless because you had to pay an extra to get to it, whereas another one on the map was free. Something I do want to mention that is not bad but just kind of funny is this space right here next to this bridge. If you land on it, a shark will make you pay 5 coins and immediately take you to the third island. It's a neat space and can definitely help you a lot, as there is a chance that the star will land on that side of the island and you can get the other half very quickly. However, I think it's odd that aside from the bridge, there's no visual indicator that this will do that, because it is not a happening space. I understand why they did not want this to be called a happening space, because they wanted to make it clear that every happening space on the board will trigger the pirate ship to launch you back to start, but it would have been nice to have some other more clear indicator that something will happen if you land here, and not just trial and error. You also don't get a choice, which is kind of annoying, but that's Mario Party for you. Overall, this is a very nice board and works very well within the context of this game. I just think that the next two allow for more strategy and works with the mechanics of the game that's been given a lot better. But if you were to choose any of these 3 boards that were left, including this one, you're still going to have a fantastic time, no matter what. I have very few things bad to say about this one and the other 2 boards coming up. In second place, we have Westernland. I love the theming of this one, and the back wall makes it look like inside the Grand Canyon. It's really cool. The main gimmick of this board is the mustache train that drives around the track. By landing on the station that is currently on, you can pay coins to either make it go 1 stop or 2 stops, and then it will randomly choose whether it wants to go forwards or backwards. I don't like that it's a little bit random, but for the amount of ground you cover, it's still very helpful. If you're stuck on the tracks when the train drives over you, you'll be launched back to start. It creates a good amount of risk versus reward because staying on the tracks could be dangerous. Also, any happening spaces on this board will make the train move to the next station automatically. I love that the boos on this map are also placed on the tracks on the opposite sides because there's only one way to get to them, and that is taking the main track section. It adds risk to staying on the track long enough trying to get to the boo and not be hit by the train. It's very smart and it's a good way to handle it for both of them rather than just putting one behind a skeleton key door and calling it a day. The only other mechanic specific to this board is the Wiggler Milk Saloon at the top of the board. Here, you can pay 5 coins to make one player join you for a drink of milk, or you can pay 15 to make all other players move to that spot. It can be very devastating to other players that are really close to the star, making them fly far away to the space that you're on. It's a nice bit of strategy and I think it works well. One thing I don't love is that the item shop in the center at the board, because it would be nicer if it was placed near the first junction. As we'll talk about later, this is the biggest board in the game, so having movement items is very important. Placing the only item shop in the middle of the board where it's hard to reach it after the first time can be very difficult. It's only about 12 spaces onto the board on your first rotation around the board, so it's not terrible, but anything after that, you'll probably not reach it again unless you take the train back towards start. It's annoying because there's only one way to get to it from a specific junction near the start. I wish there were more ways to get to it, or if any other map was going to have another item space, it should have been this one. There are actual item spaces instead of just shops scattered about this map, and all the other ones, so this does help, but you still have to obviously land on it, which while doable is not the best way to approach that game design. One thing I do like is that the banks are very far out of the way. One of them is on the far side of the board and can be avoided with a skeleton key route, and the other is on one route of 4 which it splits off from, on the far left side. They're very important parts of the map to keep the economy in check, but it's not fun to pass them and lose coins, so it's nice that it's not a massive detriment at the start of the map like it is in most maps. The skeleton key doors are not super helpful but can be nice. Like I said, both of them actually can avoid the bank, which is helpful, and allow you to avoid parts of the track if you wish to do so. But other than that, they're really just used to cut off a few spaces of land on a specific area. The chance time space, of which there are 2 on this map, isn't even held behind one of the gates. In fact, one of the chance time spaces is not even held behind one of the gates, so you don't even have to use the key to get to that. The biggest issue I have with the board is that it's far too big. It's easily the biggest board in the game, and the mixture of the item shop being in the middle of the board and the train only being accessible at certain points whilst being ran over will send you back to start makes the board feel much bigger and more daunting than it needs to be. It could take you probably half the game to circle the board once, assuming you don't get hit by anything. It'll change your positioning. Just a little bit too big, but I do enjoy the amount of different routes that can be taken. The other thing I like that this board was given in Super Mario Party Jamboree is the steamer train ticket, which allows you to call the train to whichever station you're on if you have that item. You can't do this if the train is not already there in this game. It allows you to traverse the map much quicker than you would otherwise do. I wish you would have another ability to call the train to you from other stations. Otherwise, unless you land on a happening space, the train most of the time doesn't make a massive impact on the board gameplay because of how big it is. This is still a fantastic board and definitely deserves to come back in Super Mario Party Jamboree, but I think there's one that's a little bit better. In first place, we have Horrorland, and I really like this map. They give it a very unique mechanic where every time a character lands on a happening space, it will turn from night to day and vice versa. At night, the swamps on the board will move every time someone passes their direction, either being paid for by coins or going the opposite direction. It was the same in DK Shenmue Adventure from Mario Party 1. The other thing that happens is that the boos will also be active only at night. This is a brilliant mechanic so much that they made an entire game out of it, which we'll be talking about later down the line. It also works very well within the context of this game. It makes you strategize about when you want to take certain routes, and not only that, but the map itself has multiple instances where you can do a small loop if you want to stall your time to try to get the Womp section during the night. At the start, you have 2 circles on the bottom section of the map that allows you to loop to stall your time. The second one is also useful because item shop is right there. You do have to use a skeleton key for it, so you do have to plan that out as well. The other skeleton key door will take you to the Big Boo, which will switch out for King Boo and Superstars. I think this is a good choice. Here, if you pay 15 coins, you can steal around 20 coins from every player, but if you pay 150 coins, you can steal 1 star from every player. This is an extremely rare occurrence, and I definitely did not capture that footage in my playthrough, but it's very cool that it can happen, on a rare occasion. I also like the mansion at the top because if you go here, you can willingly change the time of day from night to day or vice versa whenever you wish to do so. It allows you to either plan for the next turn or mess up another player's route at that time. Another part I really love is the little eyeball near the start of the map. Here, if you pay 10 coins, it will shoot up to the top of the map. Here, if you pay 10 coins, it will shoot you up towards the top of the map. This can be a great mode of transportation, and it can also mess with other players because anyone caught within this line will also go with you. It's at a great spot because if a character is within these 4 spaces before the second boo, they can no longer take the benefit from that boo. It's also rare because the chance of them being in those 4 spaces are very small, but when it lines up, it can be very fun. The only thing I think that could improve this board is 1, better visuals because it's a little bit cluttered, and an item to be able to change the day and night at any point. But this is also something they didn't even implement in Superstars, so maybe they never intended for it to happen. Overall, this is a fantastic board. It perfectly blends the amount of strategy that you want in a Mario Party game with a good route to accompany it, so that when the gimmick inevitably makes you mad, or doesn't work exactly how you wish it would, there are still ways to compensate for that and plan your next turn out accordingly. I think that it's undoubtedly the best board in this game and has no competition for sure. So what do you think? Are my opinions based or do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below and join me next time as I rank the Mario Party 3 boards. Thank you all so much for watching and I'll see you all next time.